What if I told you that the loudest sound at a crime scene isn't a gunshot? It's not a scream that echoes into the night. It is not the shattering of glass, or the wail of a distant siren rushing to the scene. Often, the most damning sound is something much quieter. It is something that travels on the air long after the crime is committed. It is a whisper, a boast. The foolish, prideful words of someone who thinks they have committed the perfect crime. They believe they have outsmarted everyone, leaving no clues behind for investigators to follow. They feel invincible, a ghost in the system, but their own mouth becomes the key that unlocks their prison cell. Tonight, we delve into the darkest corners of the human ego. We are going to explore the fatal flaw that has brought down countless criminals throughout history. This is not about the brilliant detectives or the high-tech forensic labs that solve cases. This is about the criminals themselves, the ones who couldn't resist the urge to brag about their dark deeds. They craved recognition for their sinister work, a fatal need for applause that ultimately led to their downfall. We will journey through chilling true stories, examining the psychological need that compels a person to confess, even when it guarantees their own capture and ruin. You are about to hear true accounts, supported by real footage and chilling evidence. Each story serves as a haunting reminder of a simple truth. The desire for notoriety can be a powerful, self-destructive force. These are the tales of individuals who manage to execute their plans with precision, evading the initial grasp of the law. They walked free, believing they had gotten away with it all. But their own pride became the lead investigator, their loose lips the star witness for the prosecution. They sealed their own fate not with a fingerprint, but with a story told to the wrong person at the wrong time. Prepare yourself for a journey into the minds of those who orchestrated crimes, only to orchestrate their own capture. As you listen to my voice, you will see the words appear on your screen, one by one, emphasizing the weight of each confession. The background music will draw you deeper into the unsettling atmosphere of these tales. These are the stories of the criminals who couldn't stop bragging, the ghosts who wanted their names to be known, and in doing so, walked themselves right into the light. Forget everything you think you know about solving crimes. Tonight, the criminals will solve it for us. Table of Contents, Part 2. Act 1, The Small-Time Bragger. 1. The First Mistake. 2. A Story, Too Good to Keep. 3. The Walls Have Ears. 4. The Inevitable Knock. Our first story takes us to the quiet, unassuming suburbs of a small Midwestern town. It was a place where everyone knew their neighbors. Serious crime was something you only saw on television. But beneath this peaceful surface, a string of burglaries had begun to rattle the community. For weeks, homes were being broken into. Small valuables were disappearing. Cash vanished without a trace. The police were stumped. No fingerprints were left behind, no forced entries, no witnesses to the crimes. The thief was like a ghost, slipping in and out of houses unseen. A growing sense of unease spread among residents who had once felt secure. The perpetrator was a young man we will call Leo. To neighbors, he seemed just an ordinary guy, maybe a little down on his luck. Certainly not a criminal mastermind. He worked odd jobs and mostly kept to himself. He was unremarkable, forgettable, and that was his greatest advantage. He observed routines, when people left for work, when they went on vacation, which windows they left unlocked. He was patient and methodical, a predator hiding in plain sight. He planned each move carefully and executed with precision, ensuring no evidence was ever left behind. Leo's method was simple yet effective. He targeted homes during the day when residents were at work or school. He used their schedules to his advantage. He never broke in. He found an unlocked door, or an open window, a common oversight in a town proud of its safety. He took only what he could carry: cash from a kitchen drawer, a piece of jewelry from a bedside table, a laptop left on the counter. He was careful not to disturb the scene, making it seem as though nothing was out of place, delaying discovery for hours, sometimes even days. For a while, it was the perfect operation. The police had no leads, the community was left guessing, wondering if a professional crew was responsible, but Leo had a weakness unrelated to his methods or planning, a flaw buried deep in his personality, a nagging voice that grew louder with every successful score. He was proud of his work, proud of how clever he was, proud that he could outsmart everyone, including the authorities. And this pride, this burning need for recognition, would become his first and most critical mistake. The thrill of the crime was one thing, but for Leo, the thrill of holding a secret was even greater. He had pulled off a dozen successful burglaries, and the police were no closer to catching him than they were on day one. He felt invincible, like a character in a movie. But what's the point of being a movie character if no one is watching? The secret began to weigh on him, not with guilt, but with an overwhelming desire to share his genius. He started small, dropping subtle hints to his closest friends during the late-night conversations. He would talk about how easy it would be to get away with something in their sleepy town. One of his friends, a man named Mark, later told police, he'd just laugh and say, "These people make it too easy." I thought he was just talking, just making stuff up, but the hints grew more specific. Leo started describing, in hypothetical terms, how one might enter a house on a specific street without being seen. The exact blind spots from the road, the specific squeak of a back gate, the way a certain family always left their upstairs window ajar on warm days. His friends listened, half amused, never truly believing that his detailed fantasies were actually confessions of his real-life activities. The breaking point came one Friday night at a local bar. Fueled by cheap beer and an inflated sense of self-importance, Leo's bragging escalated from hypothetical scenarios to direct claims. He leaned in close to his small circle of friends, his voice a low conspiratorial whisper that was impossible to ignore. He told them about the Jensen's house, the one that had been in the local paper just last week. He didn't just guess how the thief got in. He described walking through their living room, the color of the carpet, the family photo on the mantelpiece he had paused to look at before taking a wad of cash from a ceramic jar. His friends were stunned into silence. This was different. This wasn't a hypothetical story anymore. The details were too vivid, too precise. According to a witness statement, one friend asked him, "Leo, are you serious? You're the one doing this." Leo just smiled, a wide, arrogant grin spreading across his face. He took a long sip of his beer and said, "The cops in this town couldn't find a lost dog. I'm too smart for them. I'm always one step ahead." In that moment, surrounded by the sticky floors and stale air of a cheap bar, Leo had just signed his own arrest warrant. The story was simply too good to keep. For a few days, Leo's friends were conflicted. They struggled with what they had heard, trying to convince themselves that he was just drunk, just making up stories to sound tough. But the details he had shared were too specific to be a coincidence. They remembered the news reports, the pleas from neighbors on social media, trying to convince themselves that he was just drunk, just making up stories to sound tough. The unease grew into a quiet fear. What if he did it again? What if someone got hurt? The weight of the secret was now theirs to carry, and it was far heavier for them than it had ever been for Leo. It was Mark who finally decided he couldn't live with the silence. The friendship he had with Leo was overshadowed by a greater sense of responsibility to his community. He remembered Mrs. Jensen, an elderly woman who had lived on his street his entire life, now afraid to be in her own home. He thought about the trust that had been shattered in their small town. He picked up the phone and made an anonymous call to the local police department's tip line. He was nervous, his voice shaking as he repeated what Leo had bragged about at the bar, half expecting the officer on the other end to dismiss it as hearsay, but the police took it very seriously. Up until that point, they had nothing. No physical evidence, no witnesses, no suspects. This tip was the first real thread they had to pull on.
In cases like these, with no forensic leads, a human source is everything. A brag is as good as a confession, if you can prove it.
The police acted quickly but cautiously. They knew they couldn't just arrest Leo based on a drunken boast. They needed to connect his words to the crimes. They started by discreetly interviewing the other friends who were present at the bar that night. One by one, the friends confirmed Mark's story. They each recounted the same chilling details Leo had shared: the description of the Jensen's living room, the location of the cash jar, the specific window he used for entry. Their stories were consistent, painting a damning picture of a man whose ego had gotten the better of him. The police now had credible witness testimony. The quiet boast, shared among a small group of friends in a noisy bar, had echoed its way into an official investigation. The walls truly did have ears, and Leo's own words were closing in around him. Section 4. The inevitable knock. Armed with multiple witness statements, police obtained a search warrant for Leo's apartment. They were looking for stolen items. They also hoped to find something that tied him to his boasts. The search was methodical. His small, cluttered apartment. Checking under the mattress. in closets, through drawers. At first, they found nothing. Leo hid things out of plain sight. For a moment, his cleverness seemed like it might save him. But then, a loose floorboard under a rug in the bedroom. An officer pried it open. They discovered Leo's secret stash, not a trove, but a collection of small significant items, a silver locket, a distinctive watch, a collection of foreign coins, and tucked in a dusty corner, the Jensen's ceramic jar. The jar, physical proof linking his bragging to the crime. The story he told his friends was now corroborated. Police brought Leo in for questioning. His arrogance had vanished. Faced with testimony and evidence, his facade crumbled. He knew he couldn't talk his way out. The details he'd bragged about were read back in interrogation. The investigator's tone was calm, almost matter-of-fact.
You told your friends you took cash from a ceramic jar. We found that jar under your floorboards, Leo. It's over.
The bragger was trapped by his own narrative. Leo confessed to everything. He detailed all 12 burglaries, his motive, not just money, the rush of feeling smarter than everyone. That feeling led to his capture. He was charged and convicted. The suburb's ghost was unmasked by his own voice. The inevitable knock came guided by the echo of his own bragging.